In a rain-soaked, mold-infested apartment, an 8-year-old girl throws her weight against a cabinet, barricading the door as her father smashes it in for cash. When the sound of her mother's cries echoes behind her, she is forced to scramble down the fire escape into the dark. After sprinting 5 blocks through the downpour, she bursts into the Hells Angels clubhouse, drops $6 in loose change on the table, and begs the world's most feared men for help. Moments later, the roar of Harleys shakes the street. A child's courage has just turned an abuser into prey, sparking a confrontation that no one saw coming. Before we get into it, drop your city in the comments, and hit subscribe so you don't miss what's coming next. The apartment smelled like mold and cheap vodka. Rain hammered against the cracked window, and Haley pressed the damp cloth against her mother's burning forehead one more time. "Baby, I need to get to work tomorrow." Aaliyah's voice came out in broken whispers. Each breath sounded wet, like something was drowning inside her chest. "If I miss another shift, they'll fire me." "Mom, you can barely breathe." Haley kept her hand steady, even though her insides were shaking. 8 years old, but she'd stopped feeling like a kid a long time ago. Her mother tried to sit up and collapsed back onto the mattress. Tears filled her eyes. Not sad, tears scared ones. "Then what are we going to do? Rent's due, and your father." A fist slammed against the door. "Aaliyah, open up right now." Haley's stomach turned to ice. That voice, that edge that meant he was past reasoning. "I know you got paid yesterday." Silas roared from the hallway. "Give me what's mine." Haley was already moving, pushing the dresser against the door. It scraped across the floor just as her father's weight hit from the other side. The door buckled, wood splintered near the lock. "You think that'll stop me?" His voice dropped lower now, quieter. "That was worse. That money belongs to me, Aaliyah." Another hit. The frame cracked. His fingers pushed through the gap, groping for the lock. Blood on his knuckles, dirt under his nails. "Come here, you little—" His hand grabbed air where Haley's hair had been a second earlier. Her mother was crying now. "Please, Silas, just go away. I'll give you money next week, I promise." Next week. The door shuddered. His whole arm came through, reaching. "I need it now. You know what they'll do to me if I don't pay." Haley's eyes darted around the room. No phone. No neighbors who cared. No escape except the window 3 floors up. Her father found the dresser edge and started pushing. Inch by inch, he was getting in. Haley threw her 47 pounds against it, but physics wasn't on her side. "Haley, move away." Her mother's voice cracked. "He'll hurt you." But moving meant he'd get in faster. And Haley had seen what he did when angry. She wore long sleeves in summer because of what he did. Her eyes caught something. A leather jacket on the chair belonged to the old man from 3C who died last winter. He'd been nice, always slipped her $1, told her to buy something sweet. On the back was a patch, a skull with wings. 3 letters everyone in the neighborhood knew. Hey, Hells Angels. The clubhouse sat 5 blocks down. Everyone knew where it was. Everyone crossed the street when passing it. Everyone knew those men were dangerous. But her father's arm was through the door now, and dangerous was exactly what she needed. "I'm ripping this door off," Silas screamed. "I'm taking every penny. Then I'm showing you what happens when you disrespect me." Haley grabbed the jacket and ran to her mother. She whispered in her ear, barely audible over the chaos, "I'm getting help." Her mother's eyes went wide. "No, baby, it's too dangerous. More dangerous than him." Haley pointed at the door, coming off its hinges. Her father had found something, sounded like a crowbar prying it open. 2 minutes, maybe less. Her mother grabbed her wrist. "Where will you go? There's nobody." "Yes, there is." Haley pulled away and grabbed the fire escape ladder outside. "Keep the door blocked as long as you can." "Haley!" She was already out rain, hitting her face like needles. Behind her, the door finally gave. She heard her father's triumph, her mother's scream, furniture crashing. Haley climbed down so fast she nearly fell twice. When her feet hit the alley, she ran. Past dumpsters, past broken streetlights, past the dealer's corner. She ran like the devil was chasing her. Maybe he was. The clubhouse appeared through the rain. Red neon spelling private property. A dozen Harley-Davidsons in perfect formation, chrome gleaming. They looked like weapons. A man stood under the awning smoking, refrigerator-sized beard to his chest arms covered in moving tattoos. His vest said Bear. Haley stopped 5 feet away, soaked, clutching the jacket. "Kid, you lost." Bear's voice sounded like gravel. "This ain't for little girls. Go home." "I need whoever's in charge." Her voice didn't shake. She'd used all her fear on the fire escape. Right now. Bear studied her like a strange bug. You need to see the president at 9 o'clock in the rain. He said it slowly. That what you're telling me? Yes. Why would I let you? Haley held up the jacket. This was Tommy's, from 3C. People say the angels have a code, that you protect your own, that you don't turn your back on people who need help. Something shifted in Bear's face. His eyes dropped to the patch. That's Tommy's jacket. He looked at her closer. You're the kid from his building, the one he gave money to. He was nice. He said if I ever needed help the kind cops couldn't give, I should come here, that his brothers would know what to do. Tommy's been dead 6 months. I know, but his promise isn't. Bear dropped his cigarette and crushed it. What kind of help? The kind where someone dies tonight if nobody stops it. He straightened up, hand moving toward his waist. Someone threatening you. My father's killing my mother right now, in our apartment. When he's done with her, he'll come for me. Last week, he told her he'd sell me to people at the docks if she didn't give him money. Bear's face went cold and focused. How old are you? 8. Jesus Christ. He turned and shouted through the door. Jax, get out here. Haley didn't wait. While Bear was distracted, she ducked under his arm and ran straight into the clubhouse. Wall of sound and smoke. 20 men in leather vests with skull and wings patches. Working on bikes, playing cards, drinking. All stopped when they saw her. A little girl dripping rainwater on their floor holding a dead man's jacket. In the center sat a man in a cracked leather chair like a throne. 6'3", gray threading dark hair tattoos on every inch of skin. He held a pistol, cleaning it with a rag. Bear, why is there a child in my clubhouse? She forced past me. I need your help. Haley walked straight to his chair and looked him in the eye. My name is Haley. My father is Silas McNamara. He's at my apartment right now killing my mother, and I don't have anyone else. Jax looked up. Gunmetal gray eyes studied her with intensity that would make most adults uncomfortable. Haley held his gaze. Silas McNamara. He said it like tasting something rotten. The drunk who owes half the city. That Silas. That's him. What makes you think we'd help We're Not Heroes, kid? Haley pulled out a plastic bag. $6.37 in change, every penny she'd hidden for 3 months. She placed it next to his gun. This is all I have. Tommy said respect and loyalty matter more to you than money, so I'm showing respect by asking instead of begging, and I'll give you loyalty forever if you help right now, because in 10 minutes, my mom's dead, and none of this matters anyway. The room went silent. Even the music stopped. A wrench dropped on concrete, echoing like a gunshot. Jax set down his gun and leaned forward. Take off your jacket. Haley hesitated, then did. Underneath was a soaked t-shirt. Visible on her arms were cigarette burns, round and perfect, some old scars, some fresh scabs. Bruises in various stages covered her ribs. A handprint on her upper arm fingers, clear in purple and yellow. Someone cursed. Someone slammed a table. Jax's jaw tightened. How long? Since I can remember. Your mother. Worse. But she's sick now. Pneumonia, I think. She can't fight back or run. He knows it. That's why tonight. Jax stood slowly, taller than she thought. He looked at Bear. How long since she left? 5 minutes? Maybe less. No time for a full briefing. Jax grabbed his vest. Snakehammer Bear, you're with me. Rest stay here in case it's a setup. He looked down at Haley. You ride with me. And kid. If you're lying, if this is a con, what your father does will look like a birthday party compared to what happens next. Clear? Crystal. Good. He grabbed a radio. Let's go teach someone about consequences. The Harley roared to life beneath them, the sound cutting through the rain like a chainsaw through silk. Haley wrapped her small arms around Jax's waist, feeling the leather of his vest slick with water. 3 more engines fired up behind them, Bear, Snake, and Hammer mounting their bikes in perfect synchronization. Hold tight, Jax shouted over his shoulder. The bike lurched forward before she could respond. Haley squeezed harder, pressing her face against his back as they shot out into the street. The rain felt like tiny bullets at this speed, stinging her cheeks and arms. Streetlights blurred into streaks of yellow and white. They made the 5 blocks in less than 2 minutes. Jax didn't slow for stop signs or red lights, just powered through intersections with the other 3 bikes flanking him like a military formation. The sound of 4 Harleys in formation was incredible, a rolling thunder that made windows rattle in their frames as they passed. When they reached her building, Jax killed the engine but didn't dismount immediately. His hand came up signaling the others to wait. For 10 seconds, he just sat there scanning the building with those gray eyes, reading it like a book Haley couldn't understand. "Third floor right." His voice was calm now, professional. "Apartment 3, B, right at the top of the stairs. Anyone else in the building we need to worry about?" "Mrs. Chen on the first floor, but she's deaf. Mr. Patterson on 2, but he never comes out. Everyone else keeps to themselves." Jax nodded slowly. "Snake, you stay with the bikes. Anyone comes near them, I want to know. Bearhammer, you're with me." He turned his head slightly, speaking to Haley without looking at her. "You stay behind me at all times. You see something dangerous, you say the word red loud and clear." "Got it. Got it. Good girl." He swung off the bike and held out his hand to help her down. His palm was rough with calluses, warm despite the rain. "Let's go get your mom." The stairs were worse than Haley remembered. Trash on the second-floor landing looked like someone's dinner from 3 days ago. The smell of urine and marijuana mixed with something chemical she couldn't identify. Bear wrinkled his nose but didn't comment. On the third floor, they could hear it before they saw it. Crashing sounds, a woman crying, a man's voice raised in rage. Jax's hand went to his waistband, pulling out the pistol Haley had seen him cleaning earlier. Bear and Hammer did the same. She felt her heart hammering against her ribs. "Which one?" Jax whispered. Haley pointed to 3B. The door was hanging half off its hinges, leaning inward at a sick angle. Light spilled out into the dark hallway along with her father's voice. "Where is she? Where's that little bitch?" Silas was screaming. "She took something from me, the money you hid from me." "Where is it, Aaliyah? Where?" The sound of something breaking. "Glass, maybe." Her mother's voice rose in a weak protest that got cut off suddenly. Jax moved fast. 1 second he was beside Haley. The next he was at the door, pistol raised. He kicked the broken door the rest of the way open with one boot. "Step away from her." Silas spun around so fast he nearly fell. He was holding a bottle whiskey half empty, and his other hand was tangled in Aaliyah's hair. Her mother was on the floor, face already swelling on one side, blood trickling from her nose. For a moment, nobody moved. Silas looked at Jax, at the gun, at the 2 massive bikers filling the doorway behind him. His face went through several emotions in rapid succession: confusion, recognition, fear, then something that looked like calculation. "This is a domestic matter." Silas's voice came out strangled. "Between me and my wife. Not your business." Funny thing about business. Jax took 1 step into the apartment. His pistol never wavered, pointed directly at Silas's center mass. "I'm making it my business. Let go of her hair. Or what, you gonna shoot me in front of my kid?" Silas tried to laugh, but it came out more like a cough. His eyes were bloodshot pupils dilated, high on something beyond just alcohol. "You think you can just walk in here and—" "I don't think. I know." Jax's voice dropped lower, colder. "You got 3 seconds to take your hand out of her hair. After that, I'm not asking again. You can't." 1. Silas tightened his grip. Aaliyah whimpered. 2. "Wait, just wait a goddamn second." Bear and Hammer moved into the apartment, spreading out to flank Jax. The space suddenly felt much smaller, crushed under the weight of 3 large men who knew exactly what they were doing. Silas's hand loosened. He let go of Aaliyah's hair and took a step back, hands coming up in a gesture that might have been surrender if his face hadn't been twisted with rage. "Fine, fine. You want her, take the useless bitch. See if I care." Jax didn't lower his gun. "Hammer, get the mother." Hammer holstered his weapon and moved to Aaliyah with surprising gentleness for a man his size. He helped her up, carefully supporting her weight when her legs threatened to give out. She was shaking so hard Haley could see it from the doorway. "We're going now." Jax started backing toward the door, gun still trained on Silas. "You're going to stay right where you are for the next 5 minutes. You're not going to follow us. You're not going to call anyone. You're just going to stand there and think real hard about your life choices." Silas's face went purple. "You can't tell me what to do in my own house. That's my wife. That's a woman you put your hands on." Jax cut him off. "And a kid you burned with cigarettes. I saw the marks. So here's what's going to happen instead. You're going to pretend tonight never happened. You're going to forget you have a wife and daughter, because if I hear you went anywhere near them again, if I hear you even said their names, I'm going to come back here, and we're going to have a very different conversation. The kind that ends with your teeth in a plastic bag. We clear. The apartment went silent except for Aaliyah's ragged breathing. Silas stared at Jax with pure hatred, but something in those gray eyes must have convinced him because he gave a jerky nod. Good. Jax backed through the door. 5 minutes. Count them slow. They moved fast down the stairs, Hammer still supporting Aaliyah. Jax in the rear, watching for Pursuit Bear taking point. Haley stayed close to her mother, holding on to whatever piece of her she could reach. When they hit the street, Snake had all 4 bikes running. The rain had intensified, turning the street into a river of reflected neon and streetlight. "We taking them to the clubhouse?" Bear asked. Jax shook his head. "Hospital first. She needs a doctor." He looked at Aaliyah, really looked at her for the first time, saw the pallor of her skin, the way each breath seemed to cost her something. "Pneumonia." Aaliyah managed a weak nod. "Hammer, you take her. Drive smooth, no heroics. Bear and Snake, you escort him. I'll take the kid back to the clubhouse." "What about the husband?" Snake asked, already knowing the answer, but needing to hear it anyway. "We'll deal with him tomorrow." Jax's voice had an edge to it that made Haley shiver. After he's had time to think about whether he wants to keep breathing. They split up at the next intersection. Haley watched the bike carrying her mother disappear into the rain, heading toward County General. Part of her wanted to go with them, but a bigger part knew her mother needed things she couldn't provide. Real help, medicine, safety. "She's going to be okay," Jax said, reading her mind. "Hammer's old lady is a nurse. He knows what to tell them." Haley nodded but didn't trust herself to speak. The adrenaline was wearing off now, leaving behind something hollow and shaky. Back at the clubhouse, Jax led her to a room off the main space. It was quieter here, just a desk, a couch with springs showing through the leather, and walls covered with photos, men on motorcycles, brotherhood, frozen in silver and black. "Sit." He pointed at the couch. Haley sat. Her clothes were still soaked, dripping onto the floor in a growing puddle. She couldn't stop shivering now, not from cold, but from everything catching up to her all at once. Jax grabbed a blanket from somewhere and tossed it to her, then sat in the chair across from her. He pulled out a pack of cigarettes, looked at them, then put them away. Instead, he just leaned forward, elbows on his knees, and studied her in that intense way he had. "Tell me about your father." It wasn't a request. Haley pulled the blanket tighter around her shoulders. "What do you want to know?" "Everything. Start at the beginning. How long has he been hitting you?" "I don't remember a time when he didn't." The words came out flat, matter of fact. She'd thought about this story so many times, practiced telling it to police or teachers or social workers who never came. "When I was really little, it was just slaps. Open hand, never where anyone could see. Then I got older and started talking back, and he started using his fists. The cigarette burns, those started last year. He said I needed to learn respect. That little girls who talk back need to be taught lessons they won't forget." Haley touched her arm where the worst ones were hidden under the blanket now. "He'd hold me down and—" Her voice cracked. She swallowed hard. "He'd count each one. Tell me it was my fault. That I made him do it." Jax's jaw tightened. A muscle worked in his cheek. "What about your mother?" "She tried to stop him. At first. But then he started hitting her worse. And she got sick so she couldn't fight anymore. He knew it too. That's why tonight he knew she couldn't stop him, couldn't run, couldn't do anything except lie there and take it." "Where does he get his money?" "Odd jobs mostly. Construction when he's sober enough. But he owes people. A lot of people. Dealers loan sharks bookies. Sometimes men would come to the apartment looking for him. Scary men with guns. Mom would hide me in the closet, but I could hear them through the door. Hear what they said they'd do if he didn't pay up." "He ever try to sell you?" Jax asked the question quietly, but there was steel underneath. "Like he threatened." Haley hesitated. This was the part she'd never told anyone. "Once, 3 months ago, he brought a man to the apartment. Older guy, maybe 50 with bad teeth. They talked in the kitchen while I pretended to sleep. The man wanted to see me. Wanted to check if I was—" She couldn't finish that sentence. Didn't need to. "My mom heard them. She came out and started screaming, threatened to call the police. The man left. My father broke her arm that night." The room was silent except for the muted sounds of the clubhouse beyond the door. Someone laughed. A bike engine revved, life continuing while Haley's unfolded its horrors in this small room. Jax reached into his pocket and pulled out a small leather bag. He set it on the desk between them and opened it. Inside was more money than Haley had ever seen. In one place, a thick stack of bills, all 20s and 50s. Your mother's going to need medicine, real medicine, not that over-the-counter garbage. She's going to need time to recover, which means time off work. You're going to need food, a safe place to stay. He pushed the bag toward her. This should cover a month, maybe two, if you're smart about it. Haley stared at the money but didn't reach for it. Why are you helping us? Because Tommy asked me to. Jax lit a cigarette, now taking a long drag. 3 days before he died, he called me. Said there was a kid in his building who needed looking after. A little girl whose father was a piece of shit and whose mother was too scared to leave. He made me promise that if anything happened to him, I'd check in on you. I didn't know he did that. He was a good man, better than most of us deserve. Jax exhaled smoke toward the ceiling. He loved this club, but he loved people more. Used to say that being a Hell's Angel wasn't about the bikes or the leather. It was about brotherhood, about protecting what matters. He thought you mattered. Haley felt tears burning behind her eyes for the first time all night. She'd held them back through everything, through the fear, the running, the confrontation, but Tommy's kindness, reaching out from beyond death, finally broke something loose inside her. Hey! Jax's voice softened just a fraction. You don't cry here. Not yet. We still have work to do. She wiped her eyes hard with the blanket. What kind of work? The kind that makes sure your father understands he made a very bad mistake tonight. The kind that ensures he never comes near you or your mother again. He stood up, walking to the wall covered in photos. He pointed to one, a younger version of himself, with his arm around Tommy, both grinning at the camera. You see this. This is what we do. We protect our own. And as of tonight, you're our own. That means you're under our protection. Forever. Anyone tries to hurt you, they answer to every member of this club, all 63 of us. But I'm not. I'm not part of the club. Jax turned back to look at her. You are now. You came to us for help when you had nowhere else to go. You showed courage, you showed respect, and you showed loyalty to your mother. Those are the things we value. Not everyone who wears the patch understands that, but the ones who matter do. And I'm the one who decides who matters. A knock on the door interrupted them. Bear stuck his head in. Jax got word from Hammer. The woman's checked in at county. They're treating her for pneumonia and dehydration. Cops asked questions, but she told them she fell down the stairs. They didn't buy it, but without her pressing charges. Good. Anyone follow them? Nah. Street was clear. But boss, Bear's face was grim. We got another problem. Silas wasn't at the apartment when we drove past just now. Window was open. Looks like he rabbited. Jax cursed softly. Of course he did. Cowards always run. He looked at Haley. Your father have any friends, anyone he might run to? Haley thought hard. There's a guy named Marcus. They drink together sometimes at O'Reilly's bar on 4th Street. And there's another man, I don't know his real name, but my father calls him Crow. They used to do jobs together. Crow. Jax and Bear exchanged looks. Crow Williams. Maybe he has a tattoo of a bird on his neck. That's him. Bear's expression darkened. He runs with the Vultures. The name hung in the air like a bad smell. Even Haley had heard of the Vultures, a gang that controlled the south side of town. They weren't bikers like the Angels. They were something meaner, something without rules or codes. So Silas is going to run to his old running buddy, Jax said, slowly thinking out loud. And Crow's going to see an opportunity, a way to get leverage on us. We can't let him get to Crow first. Bear stepped fully into the room now. If the Vultures get involved, I know. Jax cut him off with a sharp gesture. Get everyone together, full church in 10 minutes. We need to vote on this. Bear left and Jax turned back to Haley. You need to understand something. Your father just made this bigger than one man hurting his family. He's involving people who want to hurt us. Which means this is going to get messy. What do I do? You stay here, you stay safe, and you trust that we know how to handle our business. He walked to the door, then paused. One more thing. When this is over, and it will be over soon, you're going to have to make a choice. What choice? Whether you want revenge or whether you want peace. Because I can give you either one, but I can't give you both. He left before she could ask what he meant. Morning came with fog thick enough to taste. Haley had slept fitfully on the couch in Jax's office, jerking awake every hour to make sure this wasn't a dream, that she really was safe behind these walls covered with photos of brotherhood. Someone, a woman with kind eyes and gray hair pulled back in a ponytail, had brought her clean clothes during the night. jeans that were almost her size, a t-shirt with the Hells Angels logo that hung to her knees, and a hoodie that actually fit. The woman had introduced herself as Donna Bear's wife. "You're the one Tommy told us about," Donna had said, sitting on the edge of the couch. "He used to talk about you all the time, said you were brave as hell and twice as smart." Now, with weak sunlight fighting through the fog, Haley stood in the main room watching the club wake up. Men stumbled out of back rooms, rubbing sleep from their eyes. Coffee brewed in a pot that looked older than her. Someone turned on a radio and Johnny Cash's voice filled the space. Jax appeared from a hallway wearing the same clothes as last night, which meant he probably hadn't slept either. His eyes found her immediately. "Your mom's stable. Hammer called an hour ago. Doctors say she'll recover, but she needs to stay a few days for IV antibiotics." He poured himself coffee in a mug that said, "World's okayest dad." "We're going to get you to school." Haley blinked. "School? It's Tuesday. You should be in class." He said it like it was the most obvious thing in the world. "Can't have social services sniffing around asking why you're missing. That brings attention we don't need right now." "But what about my father? What if he—" "That's being handled." Jax set down his mug and called out to the room. "All right, ladies, field trip time. Everyone who's not working day shift, you're with me." 15 minutes later, Haley found herself sitting behind Jax again, but this time there were 19 other motorcycles forming up around them. The morning shift had arrived, more members rolling in from their day jobs, some in construction clothes, some in mechanics' uniforms, one guy still wearing a FedEx delivery uniform. They moved out in a formation that looked military. 2 bikes in front Jax and Haley in the center, the rest flanking them on both sides and bringing up the rear. The sound of 20 Harley-Davidsons running in sync was like rolling thunder and earthquake on wheels. Every person on the street stopped to watch them pass. Mothers pulled their children back onto the curb. Cars pulled over. Even the morning traffic seemed to pause, sensing that something significant was happening. Haley's school, Lincoln Elementary, sat at the end of a residential street lined with maple trees. It was the kind of place that looked safe in daylight with its playground and colorful murals. But Haley knew better. She knew about the kids who waited by the dumpsters to steal lunch money. She knew about the teachers who looked the other way when bruises showed up because asking questions meant paperwork. The convoy rolled right up to the front entrance and stopped. Every engine cut simultaneously, leaving a ringing silence that felt louder than the noise had been. Kids were arriving for school, walking, getting dropped off by parents, climbing off buses. All of them froze, staring at the wall of leather and chrome that had materialized in their world. Jax dismounted and helped Haley down. Then he did something she didn't expect. He reached into his vest and pulled out a red bandana, silk worn soft with age, the Hells Angels logo embroidered in black. He tied it carefully around the strap of her backpack, making sure it was visible, making sure everyone could see it. "What's this for?" Haley asked. "Insurance." Jax knelt down so they were eye level. "You see, anyone wearing colors, doesn't matter what gang, what crew, what organization, they're going to recognize this. They're going to know you're protected, and if they're smart, they're going to leave you alone. And if they're not smart, then you find me, and we'll educate them." He stood back up, and his voice carried across the parking lot. "Listen up. This is Haley. She's under our protection now. Anyone got a problem with that?" Silence. Nobody moved. Even the teachers standing by the entrance looked uncertain about what to do. Then Bear stepped forward from the formation. He was holding something, a small flip phone, the kind you could buy at a gas station. He handed it to Haley. "My number's programmed in there. Number 1 on speed dial. You need us, you call, day or night. Don't matter if it's a stubbed toe or the apocalypse, you call, we answer." One by one, other members came forward. Snake gave her a small canister of pepper spray disguised as a lip gloss. Hammer handed her a $20 bill for lunch. A younger guy named Diesel gave her his Lucky Rabbit's foot keychain. "For courage," he said with a wink. Watching these dangerous men treating her like she mattered, Haley felt something shift inside her chest. It wasn't just gratitude, it was belonging. From across the parking lot, Haley spotted them. The 3 kids who made her life hell most days. Tyler, the ringleader with his sneering face. Madison, who pretended to be nice before tripping people in the hallway. And Jacob, who was all muscle and no brain, but effective at intimidation. They were staring at the scene with expressions ranging from confusion to genuine fear. Jax noticed her looking. "Those the ones who give you trouble?" "Sometimes." "Want me to say something?" Haley thought about it. thought about how good it would feel to watch them squirm under Jax's stare, but then she shook her head. No, they're not worth it. Jax smiled, really smiled, showing teeth. That's the right answer. Save your ammunition for battles that matter. He straightened up and raised his voice again. All right, show's over. The lady has learning to do. The convoy remounted. 19 engines roared back to life. And just like that, they were gone, rolling away in perfect formation down the residential street. Haley stood there for a moment, feeling the weight of the bandana on her backpack and the phone in her pocket. She felt different, taller somehow, stronger. She walked toward the school entrance. Tyler and his crew were still standing there, trying to decide if they should say something. Haley walked right past them without a word, and they parted like the Red Sea. Inside, the hallways felt different too. Kids whispered as she passed. Teachers looked at her with new wariness. Everyone had seen the convoy. Everyone had seen her arrive like some kind of protected cargo. In homeroom, Mrs. Patterson, a middle-aged woman who'd never once asked about Haley's bruises, suddenly seemed very interested in her well-being. "Haley, is everything okay at home?" she asked with false sweetness. "Those men this morning." "Everything's fine, Mrs. Patterson." Haley slid into her desk. "Just some friends of the family making sure I got to school safe." "Friends of the family." Mrs. Patterson repeated the words like they tasted bad. "I see. Well, if you need to talk to someone, the counselor's office is always open." "I'm good, thanks." The rest of the morning passed in a strange haze. Kids who usually ignored her now watched her with curiosity. Kids who usually bullied her now gave her a wide berth. Tyler tried to save face at lunch by making a comment about biker trash, but his voice cracked halfway through and nobody laughed. Haley ate her lunch, a decent sandwich she'd bought with Hammer's 20, and thought about her mother in the hospital, about Jax and the club dealing with her father, about how much her life had changed in less than 12 hours. The phone in her pocket buzzed once. A text from Bear's number, "Your mom's awake, asking for you. We'll bring you after school." For the first time in years, Haley smiled in a classroom. School ended at 3:15. Haley walked out the front doors to find Bear waiting on his Harley engine idling. No convoy this time, just one man on one bike. Low profile. "Hop on, kiddo. Hospital's 10 minutes from here." The ride was different in daylight. Haley could see the city properly, the way buildings leaned against each other like tired old men, the way graffiti told stories in spray paint and rage. Bear drove carefully, following traffic laws, drawing as little attention as possible. County General Hospital smelled like disinfectant and defeat. Bear led her through the maze of hallways to the third floor, where Hammer was standing outside room 314 with his arms crossed. He looked like a bouncer at a hospital. "She's inside, awake and eating Jell-O, which the nurses say is a good sign." Hammer stepped aside. "We'll be right out here if you need anything." Haley pushed open the door. Her mother was propped up in bed, connected to an IV drip and a heart monitor. Her face was still bruised, but the swelling had gone down. Her eyes, brown and tired and sad, lit up when she saw Haley. "Baby." Aaliyah's voice was rough but stronger than last night. "Come here." Haley ran to the bed and let her mother's arms fold around her. She buried her face in her mother's hospital gown and finally let herself cry. All the fear and adrenaline and shock of the past day came out in racking sobs. "I'm sorry," her mother whispered into her hair. "I'm so sorry I couldn't protect you. I'm sorry you had to be the brave one. I'm sorry." "Mom, stop." Haley pulled back, wiping her eyes. "You don't have to apologize. None of this is your fault." "But I let it happen. I stayed with him for so long. I let him hurt you. Because you were scared. Because you didn't have anywhere to go. Because the system doesn't protect people like us." Haley said it with a certainty beyond her years. "But we're protected now. The angels are helping us. Jax promised." Her mother's face clouded with worry. "Haley, those men, they're dangerous. I appreciate what they did, but we can't." A knock on the door interrupted her. Jax walked in carrying a small paper bag and a manila envelope. Behind him came two other club members Haley didn't recognize. "Mrs. McNamara." Jax's voice was respectful, almost formal. "Good to see you conscious. How are you feeling?" "Who are you?" Aaliyah's arms tightened protectively around Haley. "Name's Jax. I'm the president of the Hells Angels charter here in the city. Your daughter came to us last night asking for help. We provided it." He set the paper bag on the side table. "That's medication the doctor prescribed, antibiotics, painkillers, something for the fever, all paid for. The envelope has $2,000 cash. Should cover your rent bills and groceries for the next couple months while you recover." Aaliyah stared at him like he was speaking a foreign language. "Why would you do this? We can't pay you back." "Don't want you to pay us back. Consider it a loan from Tommy over in 3C. He was a brother, and he cared about your family." "So now we care about your family." Jax pulled up a chair and sat down, making himself less imposing. "But there's something we need to discuss. Your husband." The room temperature seemed to drop 10 degrees. Aaliyah's face went pale. "What about him?" "He left the apartment last night after we took you out. We've been looking for him all day. He's not at his usual spots, not at O'Reilly's, not at the construction sites, not at any of his dealer's corners." Jax leaned forward. "We think he went to the Vultures." "The Vultures?" Aaliyah looked confused. "The gang. He knows a guy named Crow Williams. They used to work together. Crow runs with the Vultures now, and they've been looking for leverage against us for months." Jax's voice stayed level, but Haley could hear the anger underneath. "Your husband is stupid enough to give them that leverage. He's probably over there right now telling them about Haley, about how we protected her, making a deal." "What kind of deal?" Haley asked, though she was afraid she knew the answer. "The kind where they try to grab you to draw us into a confrontation, make us look weak for caring about a kid, force us into their territory for a rescue." Jax stood up and walked to the window, looking out over the city. "But here's the thing about leverage, it only works if the other side doesn't see it coming." Bear appeared in the doorway. "Boss, we got confirmation. Silas was spotted an hour ago getting into a black van with vulture tags near the docks. They're probably planning something for when the kid gets out of school, which is why we moved first." Jax turned back to the room. "Haley, you're not going back to your apartment. Neither is your mother when she's discharged. We have a safe house set up, nothing fancy, but it's clean and secure. You'll stay there until the situation with your father is resolved." "Resolved how?" Aaliyah asked the question Haley was thinking. "That depends on him." Jax's face was unreadable. "If he's smart, he'll take the out we're going to offer him. He leaves town, doesn't come back, forgets you exist. If he's not smart, well, that becomes a different kind of problem." There was something in the way he said "different kind of problem" that made Haley's skin prickle. This was the side of the Angels that everyone feared, the side that solved problems permanently. "I don't want him dead," Aaliyah said suddenly. "He's a terrible person, but I don't want blood on my conscience." "Understood," Jax nodded. "We're not killers, Mrs. McNamara. We're problem solvers. Sometimes the solution is a broken nose and a warning. Sometimes it's a one-way bus ticket to another state. Sometimes—" He paused. "Sometimes the problem solves itself." A nurse came in then, fussing about too many visitors and hospital policy. Jax gave Aaliyah a meaningful look and headed for the door. "We'll be in touch. Hammer stays outside your door. Anyone tries to come in that you don't recognize, you scream, and he handles it." At the door, he stopped and looked back at Haley. "You did good, kid. You saved your mother's life last night. Don't ever forget that." After he left, Haley stayed with her mother for another hour, holding her hand and telling her about school, about the convoy, about the bandana. Her mother listened with an expression caught between gratitude and fear, like she couldn't decide if they'd been saved or if they'd just traded one dangerous situation for another. But Haley knew the truth. The Angels might be dangerous, but they were dangerous for her, not to her. And right now, that made all the difference. As the sun set outside the hospital window, painting the sky in shades of orange and red, Haley thought about her father out there somewhere making deals with devils. She thought about Jax and his promise of protection. She thought about Tommy's kindness reaching out from death to save them. And she realized that sometimes the angels who fall from heaven are the ones who save you from hell. 3 days passed in a strange kind of peace. Haley stayed at the safe house, a small 2-bedroom apartment above an auto repair shop that the club owned. It was clean, quiet, and had locks on the doors that actually worked. Bear's wife, Donna, checked in twice a day, bringing food and making sure they had everything they needed. Aaliyah was discharged on the 3rd day. The antibiotics had worked, and her breathing was clear again. The bruises on her face had faded to yellow and green, still visible, but healing. When Hammer drove them both to the safe house, she cried at the sight of the clean sheets, the stocked refrigerator, the absence of fear. "I can't believe this is real," she whispered, sitting on the couch with Haley tucked against her side. "I keep waiting for something to go wrong." Haley squeezed her mother's hand but didn't say anything. She'd learned that sometimes silence was better than empty promises. That evening, Jax came by with news. He sat across from them in a folding chair that looked too small for his frame, turning a coffee mug in his hands. "We found your husband." His voice was careful, measured. "He's been staying with Crow Williams at a house on the south side, Vulture territory." Aaliyah's hand tightened around Haley's. "What's he planning?" "That's the thing, we're not entirely sure. Our sources say Crow's been asking questions about you two. About where you're staying, what your routines are when you go to work." Jax set down his mug. "They're gathering intelligence. That means they're planning something probably within the next 48 hours. "Why haven't you done anything?" Haley asked. "You said you'd handle him." "Because going into Vulture territory to drag out your father would start a war, and wars have casualties." Jax looked at her directly. "We're trying to do this clean. Give him enough rope to hang himself without getting blood on your mother's conscience." "So what do we do?" Aaliyah's voice trembled slightly. "Just wait for them to come after us." "No, we set a trap." Jax leaned forward. "Tomorrow, Haley goes back to her normal routine. School, same time, same route. But she won't be alone. We'll have people watching, people ready. When Silas and his new friends make their move, we'll be ready." Haley felt her stomach drop. "You want to use me as bait. I want to end this so you can go back to being a kid." Jax's voice was firm, but not unkind. "Your father thinks he's clever, thinks he's found a way to hurt us by going after you. But what he doesn't realize is that we're 3 steps ahead. He shows up, tries something stupid, and we have him dead to rights, assault, attempted kidnapping, whatever sticks. We hand him to the cops with a bow on top, and he goes away for a long time. Clean, legal, no blood." "And if something goes wrong?" Aaliyah asked. "Nothing will go wrong. I'll be there myself. So will Bear Snake Hammer and about 10 other members. Your daughter will be surrounded by more protection than the president." Jax stood up. "But it's your call, both of you. If you don't want to do this, we find another way. It might take longer, might be messier, but we find it." Haley looked at her mother, saw the fear there, but also something else, exhaustion. Exhaustion with running, with hiding, with living in constant terror of when Silas would show up next. "I'll do it," Haley said before her mother could object. "If it means he goes to prison, if it means we're finally safe, I'll do it." "Haley, no," Aaliyah started. "Mom," Haley turned to face her, "this has to end. You know it does. And this is the safest way to end it. Jax and the club will be there. Dad won't even get close to me." Aaliyah looked between her daughter and Jax, her face a mask of conflicting emotions. Finally, she nodded, barely perceptible. "Okay. But if anything, and I mean anything, feels wrong, you abort. Deal." "Deal," Jax said. The next morning came too fast. Haley, dressed in her usual school clothes, ate breakfast that tasted like cardboard and tried to ignore the churning in her stomach. Bear arrived at 7:30 to drive her, and Aaliyah held her so tight, Haley thought her ribs might crack. "You call me the second something feels off," her mother whispered fiercely. "I don't care about the plan. You call me." "I will. I promise." The drive to school was quiet. Bear kept checking his mirrors, his hand never far from his waistband where Haley knew he kept his gun. The morning traffic moved sluggishly, giving her too much time to think. "You scared?" Bear asked after a while. "Yeah." "Good. Fear keeps you sharp. Just remember you're not alone out there. Jax has people in cars, on bikes, even a couple walking on foot. Someone tries something, we'll be on them before they blink." School felt surreal. Haley went through the motions of her classes, barely hearing what the teacher said. Tyler tried to crack a joke about her biker bodyguards at lunch, but his heart wasn't in it. Even he could sense something was different today. At 3:15, the final bell rang. This was it, the window, when Silas would make his move, if he was going to. Haley packed her backpack, slowly checking for the phone Bear had given her. It was there, solid and real in her pocket. She walked out the front doors into afternoon sunshine that felt too bright, too cheerful for what might happen next. Kids streamed past her, heading to buses and parent pickup. Haley started walking toward the street where Bear was supposed to meet her 6 blocks away. The first 2 blocks were normal. Cars passed. A dog barked from behind a fence. Old Mr. Chen was watering his lawn and waved at her. On the 3rd block, Haley noticed the van. It was black windows, tinted dark, parked at the curb with its engine running. Her pulse quickened, but she kept walking, trying to look natural. The van's door slid open. Silas stepped out. He looked worse than she remembered, thinner, his eyes wild and bloodshot, his clothes wrinkled like he'd slept in them for days. Behind him, 2 other men emerged. One was tall, with a crow tattooed on his neck that had to be Crow Williams. The other was shorter, stockier, with a scar running down his left cheek. "Haley!" Silas called out, trying to sound friendly, fatherly. It came out manic instead. "Baby, come here. Daddy needs to talk to you." Haley stopped walking. Her hand moved toward her pocket, toward the phone. "Don't you dare call anyone," Silas warned, his voice dropping. "You come here right now, or things get ugly." From behind her, a voice she knew. "Step away from the kid." Jax appeared from around a corner, flanked by Bear and Snake. They moved fast, cutting off the angle between Silas and Haley. 2 more club members, Hammer, and a guy called Diesel, materialized from across the street. Crow swore viciously. He'd been outmaneuvered, and he knew it. But Silas was too desperate or too high to care. Instead of backing down, he lunged forward and grabbed Haley before anyone could react. His arm locked around her throat, pulling her against him. She could smell whiskey and sweat and something chemical on him. "Don't come any closer." Silas pulled a knife from his pocket, a cheap folding blade, but sharp enough to do damage. He pressed it against Haley's side. "I'll hurt her, I swear I will." Everything stopped. The angels froze mid-step. Jax's hand was on his gun, but he didn't draw it. "Silas, don't be stupid." Jax's voice was deadly calm. "You hurt her. You don't walk away from this. You know that, right?" "I don't care anymore." Silas was shaking, and Haley could feel the knife point digging into her ribs through her shirt. "You people ruined everything. Turned my wife against me, took my daughter, made me look like a fool. Well, now I've got something you want, and you're going to let me walk out of here with her, or what?" Haley surprised herself by speaking. Her voice was steadier than she felt. "You'll stab your own daughter in front of witnesses, in front of people who will absolutely kill you for it." Silas's arm tightened around her throat. "Shut up. You don't get to talk. This is your fault. If you'd just given me the money, if you'd just listened, none of this is my fault." Haley remembered something Jax had taught her 3 nights ago when she couldn't sleep. He'd told her about pressure points, about how even a kid could hurt an adult if they knew where to hit. "And I'm done being scared of you." She slammed her heel down on her father's instep as hard as she could. He gasped, his grip loosening for just a second. Haley twisted her body, swinging her backpack loaded with textbooks and a brick she'd added that morning, just in case, directly into his face. Silas staggered backward, blood exploding from his nose. The knife clattered to the pavement. Haley dove forward away from him, and Jax was there instantly, pulling her behind him. Bear and Snake hit Silas like a freight train, slamming him face first into the side of the van. Hammer intercepted Crow, who'd pulled a gun but didn't get a chance to use it before he was disarmed and on the ground. The whole thing took less than 10 seconds. Sirens wailed in the distance, getting closer. Jax had called the cops before the confrontation even started, another part of the plan. When 2 patrol cars screeched up, they found a clear picture. 3 men with weapons attempting to kidnap a child subdued by concerned citizens. As the police handcuffed Silas, he was screaming about his rights, about how this was a setup, about how the angels had framed him. Nobody was listening. The knife on the ground told its own story. So did the witnesses' parents, picking up their kids who'd seen everything. One officer approached Jax. "You want to tell me what happened here?" "These gentlemen tried to abduct my friend's daughter. We intervened. Pretty straightforward." Jax's voice was respectful, cooperative, the voice of a concerned citizen, not a biker gang president. The officer looked skeptical, but didn't push it. "We'll need statements from everyone, especially the girl." "Of course. We'll cooperate fully." Jax looked down at Haley. "You okay?" Haley nodded, though her hands were shaking now that the adrenaline was wearing off. "I'm okay." As they loaded Silas into the police car, he locked eyes with Haley one last time. There was hatred there, but also something else, fear. He'd finally realized what he'd done, who he'd made enemies of, and that he'd crossed a line he couldn't uncross. "I'm your father," he shouted through the car window as they drove him away. "I'm your father?" "No," Haley said quietly, though he couldn't hear her anymore. "You're really not." The police station smelled like burnt coffee and bureaucracy. Haley sat in an interview room with Aaliyah on one side and a detective named Morrison on the other. They'd been there for 2 hours going over every detail of what happened. "So your father threatened you with a knife," Morrison said, for the 3rd time writing notes in a file folder, "and these men from the motorcycle club intervened." They saved my life, Haley corrected. My father was going to take me. He said so. The men with him had guns. Morrison looked up at Aaliyah. And you're comfortable with your daughter spending time around members of the Hells Angels? I'm comfortable with my daughter being alive, Aaliyah said flatly. Those men have done more to protect us in 4 days than the system has done in 8 years. So yes, I'm comfortable with it. Morrison didn't look pleased, but he couldn't argue with the facts. Silas had a knife. There were witnesses. The Angels' story was airtight. Crow Williams is a known associate of the Vultures gang, Morrison said, changing tactics. He and your husband, your ex-husband, not divorced yet, but working on it, Aaliyah interjected. Right. He and Silas McNamara have been linked to several robberies over the past 2 years. We think they were planning to ransom your daughter back to you for money. Morrison closed his folder. Silas is looking at attempted kidnapping, assault with a deadly weapon, and child endangerment. That's 10 years minimum, probably more with his priors. Crow and his friend are facing similar charges plus weapons violations. You won't need to worry about them for a long time. What about the Vultures? Aaliyah asked. Won't they retaliate? Morrison's expression darkened. That's outside our jurisdiction. That's between them and, he gestured vaguely, meaning the Angels, other parties, which meant yes, there would be retaliation. The question was when and how bad. They left the station as the sun was setting. Bear was waiting outside in his truck. No bikes today, too conspicuous. He drove them back to the safe house in silence, his eyes constantly checking mirrors. When they arrived, they found Jax sitting on the steps outside the apartment. He looked tired, older somehow than he had that morning. How'd it go? He asked as they approached. They're charging Silas with everything they can, Aaliyah said. He's not getting out anytime soon. Good. Jax stood up, his knees cracking. That's the good news. The bad news is that the Vultures are pissed. Crow was one of their senior members. His arrest makes them look weak. They're talking about retribution. Retribution against who? Haley asked, though she knew the answer. Against the club, but more specifically against me for making the call to protect you two. They're calling it overreach, saying we stepped into their territory without permission. Jax lit a cigarette, took a long drag. There's going to be a confrontation, probably soon. This is our fault, Aaliyah said, her voice breaking. We brought this to your door. No. Jax cut her off firmly. Silas brought this to everyone's door. You and Haley are victims. The Vultures are just using this as an excuse to start something they've been wanting to start for months. Better it happens now on our terms than later when they've had time to plan. What are you going to do? Haley asked. What we always do. Protect our own. He looked at both of them. You two need to stay inside for the next few days. Don't go out unless it's absolutely necessary. We've got people watching the building, but things might get loud. That night, Haley couldn't sleep. She lay in bed listening to the sounds of the city sirens in the distance, voices from the street, below the rumble of motorcycles coming and going from the shop downstairs. The club was mobilizing, preparing for something. Around 2 in the morning, she heard it, the sound of many engines approaching fast. She went to the window and saw them, at least 15 bikes with riders wearing different colors, not the skull and wings of the Angels. These patches showed a vulture with its wings spread, clutching a knife in its talons. They stopped in front of the auto shop. The lead rider, a huge man with a shaved head and a beard that reached his belt, killed his engine and stood up on his pegs. Jax. His voice carried through the night. We know you're in there. Come out and talk. Lights came on in the shop below. The bay door rolled up and the Angels emerged. Haley counted 20 of them, maybe more. Jax walked at the front, flanked by Bear and Hammer. No weapons visible, but Haley knew they were there. Tank. Jax's voice was calm, conversational even. This is private property. You're trespassing. Tank, the Vulture's leader, laughed. Private property. That's rich. You want to talk about trespassing? How about when you rolled into our territory and snatched up one of our guys? Crow was attempting to kidnap a child. We stopped him. Pretty simple. That child is the daughter of one of our associates. That makes her fair game. Tank dismounted his bike, stepping forward. You overstepped, Jax. You let a little girl wrap you around her finger, and now you've started something you can't finish. Watch me finish it. Jax's voice dropped to a growl. Crow and Silas tried to grab an 8-year-old kid in broad daylight with weapons. If you're defending that, if you're saying that's acceptable behavior, then we don't have anything to talk about. I'm saying you should have stayed out of it. Should have let us handle our business. Tank moved closer now, only a few feet from Jax. But you didn't. So now we handle our business with you. The tension was thick enough to cut. Both groups bristled hands moving toward concealed weapons. One wrong move, one misread signal, and this street would turn into a war zone. You want to do this here? Jax asked quietly. In a residential neighborhood, with families sleeping upstairs, kids in those apartments. Tank paused. He glanced up at the windows above the shop where lights were coming on as residents woke to the noise. His jaw worked like he was chewing on something tough. No, he finally said, not here. But this isn't over. You and me, we need to settle this. Old school. One-on-one. Name the place. Warehouse District. Tomorrow night. Midnight. Just you and me. Whatever happens, happens, and our crews accept the outcome. Win or lose, the beef ends there. Tank spit on the ground between them. Unless you're too soft now, caring about little girls and playing hero. Jax smiled, but there was no humor in it. Tomorrow night, I'll be there. But when I put you down when you're eating pavement and begging me to stop, you remember that this started because you defended a child abuser. You remember that the softness you're mocking is called having a code, and maybe you think about getting one yourself. Tank didn't have an answer for that. He remounted his bike, fired it up, and led his crew away into the night. The sound of their engines faded slowly, leaving silence in their wake. Jax stood in the street for a long moment, staring after them. Then he turned and looked up at the window where Haley was watching. He couldn't possibly see her in the dark, but somehow he knew she was there. He gave a small nod, a promise that everything would be okay. Haley wasn't so sure. The next day crawled by. Aaliyah tried to keep things normal, made breakfast, attempted small talk, turned on the TV. But everyone knew what was coming. By 6 in the evening, the club started gathering in the shop below. Haley could hear them voices rising and falling, planning. At 8 o'clock, Jax came upstairs. He was dressed different, not his usual jeans and vest, but cargo pants and a tight black t-shirt that showed off arms corded with muscle and ink. His knuckles were wrapped in tape. Just wanted to check in before tonight, he said, sitting down across from Aaliyah and Haley at the small kitchen table. You don't have to do this, Aaliyah said. We can leave town, start over somewhere else. You don't need to fight for us. I'm not fighting for you. Jax's voice was gentle but firm. I mean, I am, but that's not the point. I'm fighting because the vultures need to learn that some lines don't get crossed, that children aren't fair game, that there are still rules in this world, even for people like us. He looked at Haley. You taught me that, actually. How did I teach you that? By being brave enough to walk into a room full of dangerous men and ask for help. By standing up to your father even when you were terrified. By refusing to let fear control your life. He reached across the table and ruffled her hair. You're tougher than most people I know, kid. Don't ever forget that. Are you going to win? Haley asked the question that had been burning in her mind all day. Jax considered this seriously. Tank's big. He's strong. He's been doing this longer than I have. But he's also angry, and anger makes you sloppy. Me, I'm fighting for something that matters. That makes you sharp. He stood up. I'll win. And tomorrow, you two can start living life without looking over your shoulders. He left before either of them could say anything else. At midnight, Haley was lying in bed, staring at the ceiling. She heard the motorcycles leaving the entire club, heading to the warehouse district to bear witness to whatever was about to happen. She heard her mother crying softly in the next room. And she made a decision. Haley got dressed quietly, grabbed the phone Bear had given her, and slipped out of the apartment. The street was empty, everyone either asleep or at the fight. She started walking in the direction the bikes had gone. The warehouse district was 2 miles away. It took her 45 minutes moving through dark streets and using navigation skills learned from years of avoiding her father. When she heard the sound of voices and saw the glow of headlights, she knew she'd found it. The Angels had parked their bikes in a semicircle, headlights pointing toward a cleared space of cracked concrete. The Vultures were arranged opposite them, their bikes forming the other half of the circle. In the center, 2 men were fighting. Jax and Tank circled each other like wolves. Both were bleeding, Tank from a split above his eye, Jax from his lip. They'd been at this for a while. Tank rushed forward with a haymaker. Jax ducked under it and drove his fist into Tank's ribs 3 times in rapid succession. Tank grunted but grabbed Jax in a bear hug, trying to use his size advantage to crush him. Jax drove his head forward, catching Tank square in the nose. The sound was like a tree branch snapping. Tank's grip loosened, and Jax broke free, stumbling back. "Stay down!" someone from the Vultures shouted. "He's done!" But Tank wasn't done. He wiped blood from his face and charged again. This time, Jax was ready. He sidestepped, grabbed Tank's arm, and used the bigger man's momentum against him. Tank went down hard, face first, into concrete. Jax was on him in an instant, knee in his back, one arm twisted up at a painful angle. "Do you yield?" Jax's voice carried across the warehouse lot. Tank struggled, but Jax increased the pressure. "I said, do you yield?" "Yes," Tank finally screamed. "Yes, I yield. Get off me." Jax released him and stepped back. He was breathing hard, blood dripping from his chin, but he was standing. Tank rolled over onto his back, groaning. "It's done," Jax announced to both crowds. "The beef is settled. Any of you have a problem with that?" The Vultures looked at each other. Their leader had been beaten fair and square in front of witnesses. No one spoke up. "Then we're finished here." Jax walked toward the Angels' bikes, limping slightly. That's when he saw her. "Haley, what the hell are you doing here?" Every head turned. A little girl standing at the edge of the circle of light, clutching a phone in her hands. "I needed to see," Haley said simply. "I needed to know you'd be okay." Jax's expression cycled through anger, exasperation, and finally something that might have been pride. "You're supposed to be home. Your mother's going to kill me." "She's going to kill both of us," Haley agreed. "But you're alive, so it's worth it." Bear appeared, looking sheepish. "I'll drive her back." "Sorry, boss, didn't realize she'd slipped out." As Haley climbed into Bear's truck, she looked back one more time. Jax was being helped onto his bike by Snake and Hammer, wincing with each movement, but grinning like a madman. The Vultures were loading up their leader and preparing to leave, defeated but respectful. It was over. Really, truly over. 1 month later, Haley stood in front of a mirror adjusting the small leather vest that Donna had made for her. It was perfect sized for a child, but crafted with the same care as any member's vest. On the back was embroidered a patch, "Property of no one, protected by all." "You ready?" Aaliyah appeared in the doorway, smiling. She looked different now, healthier, the fear gone from her eyes. She'd started a new job at the auto shop handling the books and customer service. The pay was better, the environment was safe, and nobody asked questions when Bear's wife dropped Haley off after school. "Ready," Haley said. The clubhouse was packed. Not just the Angels, but their families too. Kids ran around playing, while parents drank beer and talked. Someone had set up a grill outside, and the smell of cooking meat filled the air. Music played from speakers, classic rock, loud enough to feel, but not so loud you couldn't talk. Jax stood at the center of it all, arm in a sling from the fight with Tank. His face had healed, though a new scar ran through his eyebrow. He spotted Haley and waved her over. "There she is, the girl of the hour." He grinned. "Come here. I want you to meet some people." He introduced her to members she hadn't met before, guys with names like Razor and Prophet and T-Bone. Some of them had kids around her age, and before long, Haley was sitting at a picnic table with 5 other children, all of them eating hot dogs and arguing about which superhero was strongest. "My dad says Jax fought 3 guys at once last week," a boy named Marcus said. He was Bear's son, loud and proud of it. "That's nothing," a girl named Sophie countered. "My Uncle Snake once rode his bike through a wall." Haley listened, but didn't contribute. She had her own stories now, but they felt private. Sacred almost. Later, as the sun started to set and someone lit a bonfire in the lot behind the clubhouse, Jax called for everyone's attention. The crowd quieted down, even the kids sensing something important was about to happen. "We do this thing once a year," Jax began, his voice carrying easily across the lot. "We gather together, brothers, families, friends, and we remember what matters. We remember Tommy, who we lost last year. We remember the code he lived by. We remember why we wear these patches." He paused, looking around at the assembled faces. "This year, we learned something. We learned that brotherhood isn't just about the people wearing the vest. It's about protecting those who can't protect themselves. It's about standing up when standing up is hard. It's about being willing to face consequences for doing what's right." His eyes found Haley in the crowd. A little girl walked into this clubhouse 1 month ago. She was scared, desperate, and completely out of options. She could have given up, could have accepted that life was going to be hard and painful and short, but she didn't. She fought. And in fighting, she reminded all of us why we do this, why we ride together, why we call each other brother. He walked over to where Haley sat, holding something in his hands. It was a photograph in a simple frame. The picture showed Haley sitting on Jax's bike surrounded by 20 members of the Angels. She was smiling, really smiling eyes, bright and happy. It had been taken last week. "Haley, you're officially under our protection. Forever. You're family now. And family looks out for each other." He placed the photo in her hands. "Welcome home, kid." The clubhouse erupted in applause and cheers. Haley felt her eyes burning with tears, but they were good tears, happy tears. She looked at her mother, who was crying openly now, and at all these dangerous, tattooed, scary men who had shown her more kindness than anyone else in her entire life. Bear hoisted her onto his shoulders so everyone could see her. "3 cheers for Haley!" The crowd roared her name 3 times, and Haley laughed a real full-bodied laugh that shook her whole frame. She felt lighter than she had in years, felt safe, felt seen. That night, after most people had left and the bonfire had burned down to glowing coals, Haley sat with Jax on the steps of the clubhouse. Aaliyah was inside talking with Donna about apartment hunting. They were moving out of the safe house and into a real place soon, but still close by. "Can I ask you something?" Haley said after a while. "Shoot. Why did you really help us? I know you said it was because of Tommy, but there's more to it, isn't there?" Jax was quiet for a long moment, staring at the dying fire. "I had a daughter once," he finally said. "Long time ago. Her mother left when she was 2, took her across the country. I spent years trying to get custody, but I had a record, and she had lawyers. Never saw my kid again." He pulled out his wallet, showing Haley a faded photograph of a little girl with dark hair and a missing tooth grinning at the camera. "She'd be 16 now. I don't know what she looks like, if she's happy, if she even remembers me, but I think about her every day. Wonder if she's safe. Wonder if anyone's looking out for her." He tucked the wallet away. "So, when you walked in here that night, desperate and brave and terrified all at once, I saw a chance to be for you what I couldn't be for her, a chance to protect a kid who needed protecting. Does that make sense?" "Yeah," Haley said softly. "It makes sense." They sat in comfortable silence, watching the last embers fade. From inside the clubhouse came the sound of laughter, Aaliyah's voice mixing with Donna's, the sound of family. "Jax," Haley said after a while. "Yeah. Thank you for everything, for saving us, for giving us a chance. You saved yourself, kid. You're the one who ran 5 blocks in the rain to ask for help. You're the one who stood up to your father. You're the one who refused to be a victim." He looked down at her. "All I did was recognize courage when I saw it. The rest was all you." Haley leaned against his shoulder, and Jax put his good arm around her. Above them, stars were starting to appear through the city's light pollution. The sound of a motorcycle engine echoed from somewhere in the distance, one of the brothers heading home after a long day. "You know what Tommy used to say?" Jax asked. "What?" "He said that angels don't always come from heaven. Sometimes they fall from it, and sometimes they ride Harleys." He chuckled. "I think he was right about that." Haley smiled. She looked at the photo frame still clutched in her hands, at the image of herself surrounded by leather and chrome and found family. She thought about her father sitting in a jail cell, about her mother breathing easy for the first time in years, about a future that suddenly felt possible. "Yeah," she agreed. "I think he was right too." Inside the clubhouse, someone started the jukebox. Bob Seger's voice drifted out into the night, singing about old-time rock and roll. Aaliyah appeared in the doorway, beckoning Haley inside. "Come on, baby. Donna's teaching me how to play pool." Haley stood up, but before she went inside, she turned back to Jax one more time. "Will you teach me to ride when I'm old enough?" Jax grinned, the expression transforming his scarred, weathered face into something younger. "Absolutely. I'll teach you everything Tommy taught me. How to handle a bike, how to read the road, how to ride with honor." He paused. "And maybe if you're interested, I'll teach you about the code. The real code. The one about brotherhood and loyalty and protecting people who can't protect themselves." "I'd like that." "Good, because something tells me you're going to make one hell of an angel someday." Haley walked inside, leaving Jax alone with his thoughts and his memories. But she wasn't worried about him. He had his brothers. He had his code. And now he had a second chance at protecting someone who needed it. The night grew darker, but inside the clubhouse, lights blazed warm and bright. Music played. People laughed. A little girl who'd been invisible for most of her life was finally seen. And somewhere in the city, Tommy's spirit, if such things existed, smiled at the knowledge that his promise had been kept, that his brothers had done right by a kid who needed them, the angels who fell from heaven had saved someone from hell. And that more than anything else made the fall worth it.
Join us to share meaningful stories by hitting the like and subscribe buttons. Don't forget to turn on the notification bell to start your day with profound lessons and heartfelt empathy.